for tuning in to Queen's Court Live, a Christian talk show that is dedicated to bringing awareness to the plight of the everyday Christian woman. We talk, we laugh, we cry, but most importantly, we heal. My name is Sana Latrice, and I am your unashamed host. Being raised by a single mother is one factor that has been suggested as contributing to the plight of African American males. Yet few studies have focused specifically on African American single mothers' experiences with raising sons. Moms with sons can be assured of two things in their mom life. The first thing is that they will have a love for their son that is absolutely remarkable. The second is that at some point you will not know what to do with your son. The topic of whether or not single moms can raise good sons is nothing new. The media is full of questions like, do moms with boys treat their sons like their husbands? Are Black moms the reason Black boys are seemingly out of control in America? Are single moms responsible for hikes in crime? I won't pretend to know the answer to these questions, but tonight we will have a transparently powerful conversation for the love of our sons. Our first guest, Angela, is a mom to two sons, Andre, age 23, and Alexander, age 7. Andre is a graduate of Fairfield University and employed by Yale New Haven Hospital. And Alexander is in the second grade and has been chosen as Student of the Month multiple times since kindergarten. Since Angela first became a mom at the age of 19, she knew that her God-given mission was to give her sons wings to fly. Quatina, our next guest, is a mother, administrative assistant, worship leader, and anointed elder in her current church. Before getting married at the age of 19, she was a teen mother. After being married for 8 years, she made the difficult decision to file for divorce, thus making her a single mother of 4 young boys. Unfortunately, 5 years after the divorce, her ex-husband was returned to his country, making the already strained relationships even more difficult. LaTanya Daniels, our next guest, is a hairstylist, a salon owner, and a mother of 2 sons, Lanier, age 17, and Auburn, age 6. Tanya found herself as a single mom when her oldest son's father ended up incarcerated for 8 years. Years later, she would find herself yet again raising a young son alone after her marriage to her youngest son's father resulted in a divorce. And our final guest, evangelist Bridget Sasser, became a single mother of 2 sons and a daughter after her 7-year marriage ended in a mutual divorce. Never did she imagine the struggle she would endure raising not 1, but 2 Black men. Today, both of her children have faced incarceration. One is finishing an 8-year sentence, and the other has just came home from a 3-year sentence. Her sons have not seen each other in over 10 years. Welcome to the conversation. So first off, I just want to welcome you ladies to the show, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedules to have this important conversation with us and our Queen's Court Live viewers on this evening. So this conversation was super important for me because, like all of you, I also have a African-American teenage son. My son is 17 years old. He is a senior in high school this year. And also, like most of you, there was a time when I was a single mom raising him by myself. So recently, I actually had a conversation with him and I asked him, did he feel like I caused him trauma as a child? And his response was a resounding absolutely yes, that I had caused him some trauma. And so as I began to really talk to him about the things that he felt that I said or did that caused him this trauma and what are some of his experiences now because of it, I realized that he really didn't understand why I had raised him the way in which I raised him. And so for me, in raising my teenage son, I raised him from a place of fear. And I found that a lot of us single moms out here today are or have raised our sons out of fear. And it's so important to have this conversation so that they get an opportunity to hear our hearts. So I want to jump right into the conversation, and I want to ask, starting with you, Bridget, what does motherhood mean to you? What does the word motherhood mean to you?
It means being able to have someone that you love unconditionally, nurturing, protecting, um, giving everything you got, being a good example, um, being encouraging, um, just having the honor of even being a mother or being able to carry children and birth children is an honor in itself. So I take it as just a gift that God has given me to be able to nurture and to love and to hold on to and to protect.
How about you, Tina? What does the word motherhood mean to you?
More and more over the years, I've learned that it's a ministry. I feel that I probably took it for granted, even though I don't really want to say that out loud, but I think I took it for granted for a lot of years. And I see how I'm like molding these children, like God gave them to me to love them, to instruct them, to mold them into, you know, good people, like godly Christian people, and to help them unlock their purpose and just different things like that. And I don't know how seriously I was taking it, or if just all the circumstances were like compounding everything. But now I'm just really, I hope it's not too late, but I'm really starting to see that it's really a ministry.
How about you, Tanya?
Well, now I'm gonna have to say I can't give it nothing less than a ministry as well. And a gift too, because they are our responsibility to bring up as not only being productive in society, but to be disciples as well. So I have to say a gift and a ministry too.
Angela?
When I think of motherhood, I think of giving my children wings to fly while yet still being a soft place for them to land if they need to.
That was good. That was definitely, that was good. So this is my next thing. I think that, I mentioned a place of fear, that's kind of how I raised my son, was from a place of fear. How about you ladies? What has your experience raising a son, raising sons? How has that experience been for you? Like, what has been your biggest fear in raising your son? And anyone can jump right in.
My biggest fear was because I was married before to their father, and we divorced when they were like 4 and 5 years old. So my biggest fear was being able to raise men that would be productive in society, that would be good husbands someday, that would be good fathers. And because of the fact that their father and I separated and he left, they didn't really get that man attention, because he went on about his business with life. And so here I was stuck with young boys. So they already had a sense of rejection from their father, from the person that they looked up to the most. Even though they had their mother, there's still something about a man with his father. So my fear was that when they became fathers, that they would in turn be, reject their children. But I thank God that the experience that they went through with their father has made them better fathers. Like, they're really close to their children. They have great relationships with their father, just with their children. Just to watch them in action as fathers is like the most beautiful thing for me to watch. Even when we visit my son, who is incarcerated in federal prison, and I take his children to see them. He has a daughter now that's 14, and he's been gone since she was probably 6. And then he has a little son that he left when he was 3. But yet and still, we keep that communication open. We let them understand where he is and why. So when we take them to see him, it's like you would never know that he's in one place and they're in another. So this is really hard on them at this point right now because we're not able to visit. But my biggest fear was always, what type of a father will they be, basically.
For me, honestly, I think it's I think fear played a role in it as well, because I'm thinking of my worst fear is them being in the grave, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's due to their bad choices and, you know, friends, bad choices and whatever they choose to do, whatever their actions are, or something just to happen because they're a young black man. So I've had to learn how to let go of that fear the last couple years and let them try to become more independent. But I think that's a big factor.
My fear in raising my sons has been being a single mom. You know, I don't want to raise boys that were like super emotional, wimpy. You know, I'm sure those are not politically correct terms, but, you know, I didn't want to raise boys that acted like girls. And with me being a female, I only know how to act like a female. So that was one fear for sure. The other fear that is prevalent, especially with my older son, is that he, you know, I had that fear, you know, if he goes into the hood, if he's in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong colors, with someone of his own race want to take him out. And if he goes somewhere with someone and he's in Long Island somewhere having fun, are the cops going to pull him over because he doesn't belong there? So there's constant fear of, you know, what it means to be a black man in America, and are you safe anywhere? And, you know, is it going to be someone of your own race taking you out, or someone of another race who doesn't, you know, think you belong there? So that has definitely been a fear, those two fears of mine.
Mm.
My biggest fear raising my first son was failing him as a mother. I didn't want him to resent me for going and trying to make a better life for him. So that was also a fear. I didn't want him to. I wanted him to understand, even though he was too young to understand. As he got older, my fear then became not being able to teach him how to be a man and making him soft. And then after that, my fear became him being mistaken out in the street as someone else and getting hurt, or you know, just being anywhere really, because nowadays you don't even have to be where you are not supposed to be to get in trouble by the police, or you can literally just be anywhere. So I had a big fear of that once he got older, just not wanting him to, you know, get caught up in the wrong crowd. I mean, he's very to himself anyway, but all it takes is one time to be in, you know, be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then anything could happen. So I had multiple years, different stages.
For me, you know, obviously the fear has always been just really scared of him leaving home. Like, that's been my biggest fear right now, is that he will be 18 very soon in July. He will be graduating high school this year, and he is coming to the place where if the cops pull him over or arrest him, they don't have to call me, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to call mommy anymore. And trying to get him to recognize the importance and what that means, you know, what that means for him, and how do you conduct yourself when you're around the police, and when you're out in public, how do you conduct yourself to make sure that you get home safe? That has been the biggest fear for me. Tanya, when you talked about, you know, even that worry of failing him,
Mm-hmm.
I have had this, you know, huge fear also of that same thing, of me failing him. And a lot of it because of the choices that I've made, right? I feel like a lot of the choices that I made have caused him to now be in situations or predicaments or that I feel like are not the greatest experiences. I feel like there's so much more that he should have, but because of my decisions, he does not have them. Do you guys, especially you, Evangelist Sasser, especially you, do you feel like, or even did people around you make you feel like some of the choices that you made for your life personally has now brought your sons to a place where they faced incarceration?
Well, every single time that they would be arrested or whatever the case may be, I would always ask myself the question, what did I do wrong? Like, where did I go wrong at? Some of the choices that I made, there's a lot that I could say in some of the choices that I made that weren't good choices. Some of the choices that I've made, sometimes I feel because they watch you, your children watch you. You know, I have my sons that's like I have 2 sons and a daughter, but it's a different relationship with boys than it is with your daughters. And I always felt that I've always been like the very apple of their eye. They always saw me as their hero. They always saw me as a very strong woman. So when I made some choices, there were some choices that I made in my life that were like totally opposite of what they've ever saw with their mother. So when they started getting incarcerated or getting in trouble, I felt like it was because of what I did is what brought them to that. They were always pretty spoiled kids, so they always had anything that they wanted pretty much. And I felt like I created monsters because a lot of times I would go above and beyond to make sure they had the best sneakers or to make sure they had the best clothes. And so when they got old enough to get it for themselves, and now it's expensive, now it's costing $200-300 for a pair of shoes, you know, now they want to get them on their own, because now I'm starting to see we can't afford those things. You know what I mean? So now they're starting to do what they do to get what they want so that they can keep up that image. So I felt like I did that. You know, I created monsters. I made you feel like that you had to have the best of everything. You had to have the name brand. You know, a lot of their friends would come over and they would say, wow, I love to come over to your house. You got this, you got that, you know, whatever. And so they were always like, I guess, made to feel like if I don't have the best, then I don't have, you know, everything. And those were the choices that I made because I wanted my kids to be spoiled and I wanted them to have things that I didn't have, or some of the choices that I made which weren't good choices that led them to that place. However, I've gotten to the place now where I look at myself and I say, you know, now the choices that I've made are better choices. Now, whatever bad choices that I made, now you see your mother in another light. So to hear them say most of the time, Mom, I am so proud of you.
Right.
You know, like when I got my master's degree, my doctorate's degree, and then when I became a minister and then I got my ordination, now it's like to see my mom in this light, you know, I'm so proud of you, like, you know, so yeah, I did feel like some of the choices I made is why they are what turned out the way they are.
And Tina, for you, I know you had to make the decision to divorce, you know, your husband, who was the father of your children, and you have four sons. What was that like for you? What, you know, how was it? Do you feel like your sons have probably at some point resented you for making that decision? Has it, you know, how have you been able to kind of keep them okay with the decision that you made?
I think for me, it was 2 parts. One part was I was a minister at the time. I became a minister after I got married. So I went back and forth with, is divorce okay? Mm-hmm. And, you know, what are the reasons for divorce and all these things? It took a long time for me to even answer that part. And then the second part was, even though my parents are still married, I remember the tumultuous upbringing that I had, and I wish things were different. And I'm just like, I'm not putting my sons through that. You know, I'm not, for the health of my children, the spiritual health of myself. You know, I'm just like, I'm not even gonna go down that road. So it's funny because when I first got married, I was like, I'm never gonna say the word divorce, and yeah, it slowly became easier and easier to say as things went on. And it wasn't all him. I mean, we were married young. I was 19. He's 2 years older than me, but we had no clue. And but the choices that my ex-husband were making just made it extremely difficult to stay married and stay sane and stay out of jail. So I was like, it's time to go. Yeah. So I mean, and it's when I talk to them, even like I think a couple months ago we had a conversation, they remember more than I would hope they would remember, unfortunately. But I don't think they've ever resented me for it. I think they understood. I think they probably want to talk to him more about his choices. And but he's turned his life around now too over there in Jamaica. But yeah.
Wow. Now it's interesting 'cause now that I'm thinking about it, everyone on here has gone through a divorce, right? Everyone except for me. Thank you, Jesus. Even though Josh be pushing them buttons. But thank God we haven't had to. So divorce is like, it's interesting because I think that divorce is kind of what has made everyone single moms. Like most of you guys were not just single moms because you just out here in these streets just being reckless. You became single moms after a divorce. So
I was a teen mom though.
You were a
teen mom. My son has a different father.
Okay. And how many were teen moms? Because I was a teen mom.
Well, I was a teen mom, but I was married. I was 19.
Wow. That's interesting because when you're looking at, just the crossover commonality between 5 different women, you know what I mean? That there's so many lines that are the same. Teen moms, divorces, sons, all the same. I think that Evangelist Sasser, you and I are the only 2 that have daughters on this, as well as sons. So let me ask this question, Angela. You, like me, have a large gap between your 2 kids. So you have an older son and then you have a younger son. How has that been? And what made you decide to have a second child?
I don't know if it was a decision as, hey, just happened, but so I was a teen mom, going back to your previous statement, a teen mom, and then I got married when my son, I think, was around 10, and we ended up divorcing. And it's funny because my ex-husband and I, we don't have any children. We had a bunch of miscarriages. And then after we divorced and I started dating someone else, boom, the other baby comes through without any complications. It was kind of funny. I was like, they put out of wedlock, but whatever. But so the decision was sort of like, just the gap was pretty much because when I was married, for some reason we just couldn't we conceived, but we couldn't carry children. And so then actually at that time we I think they were 15 years apart. And so the difference has been, I sort of feel like a grandmother. I'm not old enough to be a grandma, but I feel like a grandma in the sense that I get to do things differently. So yeah, a lot of the traumas that we're talking about this evening, I'll never get it perfect, but I'm trying not to do what I've done with the older child because I do know better now.
Awesome.
That's a really good point because just the comparison with the traumas, because my daughter is 12. She just turned 12, and then our son is 17. But I often feel like with my son, and I think that my husband constantly tells me that I treat my son a little different, right? That I don't really know what he's saying, because one minute he say I'm harder on one and I'm not on the other, and then he flips it according to what works for him, right? So I find that with my son, oftentimes I feel so guilty, right? I feel so guilty because I look at her and she was raised in the church. That's all she knows, right? She's learning how to pray, all those things. I was a lot calmer. I had more patience with her, all those different things. Whereas with him, I feel like I gypped him. I feel like he got the absolute worst sides of me. And so oftentimes now as a 17-year-old, I find myself kind of babying him, I guess, to a point, allowing him to punk me sometimes, because I just feel like I owe him so much. And I often feel like, does that feeling ever go away? You know, does that feeling ever go away? And so, Tanya, for you, you have an age difference in your two sons as well. And the relationship that your two sons have is, when I tell you, ladies, her sons have such a great relationship, which I'm gonna talk about in a second. But have you found, Tanya, the difference, like that there is a difference between the way you've raised Lanier and the way you've raised Auburn?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, with Lanier, I was a teen mom, and when he was about 1, that's when his father got locked up, and I started to pursue my career in entertainment. So I was going a lot, and he was with my mom a lot. And then by the time he turned 5, I moved to Atlanta and I took him with me. But I was still, I did what I thought was right, which was take him with me and get him, situated in school and take care of him the best way that I could. And which was not the best situation for him. So when I came back home, I sent him home first, and then I came back home to be with him. And then, at that time I was, like you said, trying to make up for lost time, trying to make up for all the things that I knew I didn't do correctly. So with Auburn, like, I was here for him. You know what I'm saying? I had him, and I was married to his father. I worked, but I worked in the house from home. So I was with him, a lot more. And, Lanier is not really he noticed that I was gone, but he was such a happy kid, and he's so happy to be around his family. I don't think it affected him as much as I thought it did. But there's a huge difference. Like, he didn't have me as much as Auburn did. Auburn had me. He had me. Like, he has me. And Lanier didn't have me for years at a time. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's a difference.
So then the question comes with you, and I know you and I have had this conversation before, with me, with Jameer, with my son. When he was born and grown up, I always used to say to him, it's going to always be me and you, right? Oh, don't worry, Jameer, it's always going to be you and mommy forever. And I started saying that to him a lot when his dad was not, showing up the way he was supposed to in his life, to make him know that despite everything, whoever leaves you, you always got mommy, right? So eventually that backfired, because when I got into a relationship with my now husband, my son was still looking at me like, what happened to me and you? I thought it was going to be me and you. So have you found, Tanya, even with, because what happened was I had to get to a point where I could draw the line between feeling like my son was my husband, right? That he was my man. He was the man. And when Josh came into his life, I was in a place where I wanted the help. I wanted Jameer to have a role model. He was 2 years old. He needed to have that male influence and all that. But I didn't know how to let Josh parent him as a man without feeling like I was doing to him what his father did, which was in a way leaving him. Does that make sense to you guys? So did you find yourself in that situation? Because now you're engaged. So what did that look like for you with Lanier, and then even the relationship that, the two of you have?
Well, I feel like it just worked. The way it worked out, because he was older, it was a lot easier. If the changes happened when he were younger, I feel like it would have been a lot different. But so I got married to Auburn's dad, and I was excited because, I'm finally like, okay, he can have a male figure in his life. And then that didn't work out. So then, yes, I had the attitude that, okay, it's either the next man is gonna be an example for him, or it's gonna be no one. so when Charlie came along, it was like, okay, he's definitely someone that I would want my boys to look up to. So now I have to withdraw a little bit. He gets on me all the time. Now I have to withdraw a little bit, but it still feels like I still have making up to do. So it's like, do I move back and make space for him and Charlie to build so that he can do what he's always been missing? Or do I stay, do I stay single mommy? Like, do I allow him to get a male's perspective? Or do I, keep my foot down and tell him how things are, like he doesn't have another parent here now. So that's hard for me to balance, but especially because I miss so much time from him. So I still do feel like I'm constantly still making up for it. And because he's not very verbal about his feelings and stuff like that, that's another thing that's makes it hard for me to not be, so clingy. You know what I mean?
Right. Because they just all in. Go ahead, Tina.
You made me think of something. When I first got married, in hindsight, I realized like this was a bad idea, like all around. When I first got married, my oldest son's father basically wanted to stop communicating because I was married now. Oh, you got a husband now. And then my husband wasn't mature enough to be like, no, he needs to get to know his dad. And he was like, nah, I'm his dad now. Because me and my husband had dated before. Me and my husband dated before I got pregnant with Isaac. So we had already established this relationship. We were already in love, and then we broke up. Then I had Isaac, and we got back together and got married. So he's like, nah, I'm Isaac's dad, basically. And in hindsight, I'm just like, I wish the two of them would have been like, we can do this together, because even after that, I feel like Isaac lost two dads. Because he didn't have the relationship with his biological dad, and then I get a divorce, and then that was, I felt like he lost twice.
Right.
I'm sorry, Sana, do you mind?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So that's exactly what happened. When I ended up with Auburn's dad, when his father did come home and we got things situated, when he finally, was saying that he wanted to step up to the plate, Auburn's dad didn't want that. And I'm pretty insecure. And, out of me saying I have to respect, my husband, plus, I couldn't negate the fact that Lanier's father denied him, you know what I'm saying? So with both of those, I decided not to let him in his life. But then Auburn's dad didn't work, so now he lost twice.
So my situation is a little bit different from you guys. So because we had gotten divorced when my sons were 4 and 5, it was almost like my oldest son felt like he was the man of the house. So as he got older and he began to work and stuff and could buy me things, he would always buy me stuff. He would always give me things. Mom, do you need money for this? Do you need money for that? And so when I met my husband and I told him that I was getting married to Michael, his question was, why are you marrying him? You don't need to get married. You have me, and I was like, come on now. But I think it was a joke, because the day that we got married and he walked me and escorted me to my husband and he handed me my hand to Michael, he cried. And later on, I asked him, I said, why did you cry? He says, Mom, because I know that this guy is going to take good care of you. He's going to take care of you. So I found it very hard to let my husband do what he's supposed to do for me as a husband, because anything I needed, if I wanted my hair done, if I wanted my nails done, if I wanted outfit, shoes, I could call my son and he'd make sure I get it done. And I had to step back and say, that is your son. You have a husband. Let your husband do some things. And I even had to tell my son, Chance, KJ, listen, dear dad doesn't mind doing these things for me. I appreciate it and I love gifts, but allow him to be my husband and you just be my son. So now it turns out that my ex-husband and my husband are good friends. He even came to our wedding. And that took a lot of work, because when I divorced him, I hated him for how he left me with my sons and how he treated them and how he didn't spend time with them and how he rejected them. He tried to come back now when they're like 16, 17 years old. By this time, they have their own mindsets. So when we're friends, and so the day we got married, I remember my husband said to my kids, he said, listen, I'm not trying to be your father because your father's right there, but we're going to do this together. So every time there was a situation, whether it was jail or whatever, even to this day, we all come together and they're able to, as two men, to raise them. But we find that they come more to my husband because their father has always tried to be their friend and try to make up for all the lost time, where Michael is a no nonsense, good to them, very respectful of them, but they know that whatever they need as far as wisdom, they'll come to Michael, who I did not even have children from. So it's a crazy situation, but you do feel like you owe them because of everything that has happened. And it's wow.
Tough. Angela, how has dating been for you with you having an older son who's out of the house, right? Because your oldest son doesn't even live with you.
Right. No, he doesn't live with me.
And now having a younger son. So has it been, have you had the opportunity to date and be able to have that conversation with your older son, like, hey, I'm dating a nice guy, I'm for you to meet him, what are your thoughts? Or have you kind of shied away from dating right now?
Well, my older son, like most boys, are very protective. So even when I married my ex-husband, they did not get along. So we did a lot of, obviously, when you blend a family, therapy and all that kind of stuff. They didn't get along well. With my other son's dad, they did get along great for whatever reason. Andre was a lot older then, so I think maybe that's why. And he really would help him out with, car trouble, or even help him pay tuition a couple of semesters. So I think they bonded that way. Mm-hmm. But at this point, like, my younger son is 7. And so it's funny because he tries to come into my bed at night and I'm like, you can't come in my bed. Mommy needs to sleep by herself. And one day her husband's going to be here. And he's like, but you're married to daddy. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So yeah, I don't know how that's going to work when I begin to seriously date someone and we want to build a family together. I'm sure this little one is not going to happen. But my sons are what I love about them is that they are very vocal, and they, I grew up a shy child. So for my children to be very expressive and I know what they're feeling, I love it. So any problem they have, they don't have a problem telling me. So if someone was coming into my life and my son really didn't like him, or there was something going on, I don't like how he looks at me or something like that, he would tell me. So I'm assured that as much as they don't want to see me maybe with someone, they also would not let me see me with the wrong one too. So I trust their judgment.
Right. Do you guys, Tina, Tanya, and Angela, have you found that maybe your sons have kind of felt some of the pressure in helping you raise the younger sibling? Like, has the older siblings kind of felt the pressure or felt the need to have to step up and be dad to your younger siblings?
Absolutely. Lanier always jokes about him being Auburn's dad. He goes, I'm the dad. Where's my son? So yeah, he does. So now I'm trying to relieve him more of that responsibility. I honestly would not have had it any other way. I love the gap. I love their relationship, and I love that he's so helpful. But he is getting older, and he has his own things he want to do and his own friends, and I don't want him to, be stuck being a teenage dad without having any kids. So that's the part that I'm quickly getting. But yes, he definitely had to help me a lot.
You just reminded me of something. That was my other fear. And to this day, thank the Lord, none of my children have children. So I was adamant about, I was upfront with them. I was honest with them about my past, about their dad's past. And I'm just like, please just wait. Please just wait. And to this day, they don't have any children. But my oldest son does feel a little bit of pressure to be that way. It's funny, they all call themselves each other's dads. It's funny. It's like, and then Mackenzie's like Daddy Kenzie. That's his running joke. He's Daddy Kenzie. But he coined that when I was dating this other guy. He's like, I'm your daddy. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. So stop that. But yeah. So Isaac, he feels that way, but I don't know if he feels like they don't respect him in that way, but he feels this pressure as an older brother to make sure they're taken care of. Like if like Andre worked overnight last night, he came in my room, he was like, "Where's Dre?" He's like, "No, where's my brother?" So he does feel that responsibility.
Yeah, with my son's, like, to piggyback on what Tina was saying, my son doesn't have any children yet, and he actually is engaged, so I'm thankful as God, does some things for the next generation. It's like, yes, look at that. But, and he's known her since high school, which is great. But the fact that I had my second child when my older child was just about 16, and I'm glad he was in the house to hear him crying in the middle of the night, seeing me diapers and all of that stuff. I'm like, this is what happens when you have a baby. I'm like, don't be playing around out here. What happens when you have a baby. So I was glad he was able to see it firsthand at 16. But he's kind of acted like he was just here the other day. He brought his brother an Easter basket, which is great. I totally forgot about that. So he thinks about him, especially his fiance. Let's get him a basket or something like that, Christmas gifts. So he hasn't really been like trying to be a father per se, but he does help out in terms of, I brought something for Alex, which is like great, He's not going to babysit, that's for sure. But he took him to see Christmas lights this year, took him to Massachusetts, so gave me a little break, and then spent some time with his brother. So he does, I would say, brotherly things, not so much fatherly things.
If you guys could each give your sons one gift that would aid them on their journey into adulthood, fatherhood, and manhood, what would that gift be?
For me, I said faith. They're just, for them to understand, I don't even know how to put it into words, but just to understand, like, to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I told them, because when I was younger, I had this fear of dying young. And I was just like, you know what, if something were to happen to mommy, just always know that mommy's faith was in God, and I need your faith to be in God. I need you to know that no matter who comes, who goes, whatever, I need you to be solid on Jesus Christ is our Savior, and for you to believe in God. So that's the biggest thing I need for them, because if they have nothing else, they have that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a conversation with him not too long ago, basically about that, just because I was just reflecting on the fact that he's about to graduate from high school, and he's about to have to pick a career and go into the world. And I just had to reflect back on what got me through difficult times and bad choices, because he's going to make bad choices and he's going to go through trials and tribulations. I'm well aware of that. But I had to think about what got me out of things, and it was God. So, I spoke to him too about, having a personal relationship, and, keep having a prayer life, and understanding that no matter what he does, God is always, he's always watching, he's always speaking to him, always. So that's what helped me. So that's what I continue with him.
If I had a gift to give my sons, it definitely would be faith in prayer, in strength. I always look at it like this. When I had my children, my thought was, I have kings. I have birthed kings that are going to be men of God one day. Because I remember my son Chauncey was very, very sick. And they thought he was going to die. He had a 50-50 chance because he was early and his lungs wasn't developed. And I remember standing over him and praying and saying, God, you did not give me this baby to allow him to leave. this is a king. This is a little prince that's going to turn into a king someday. So I would give them the joy of the Lord. I would give them everything that God has done for me. Like, I can't even put it in words. Like, you say faith and you say strength, but I would give them every opportunity and every chance that God has given to me to make them better men and to make better choices. I'm getting ready to get emotional. I'm sorry.
It's all right. We're sending you virtual hugs and love over there.
But I would give them everything God gave me. Another chance, because they made bad choices, and
Right.
I just hope that they learn from their choices, and that they know that no matter what they do wrong, just like God treats us, I'm never going to give up on them, and I'm never going to stop believing, and I'm never going to stop giving them chances. So that's what I would give them. I'm done.
I would give my sons the gift of freedom. I know whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And to live this life free and unashamed, to take your word, Sana, is just, it is a gift to live with the freedom to make choices, to make good choices. My son, when he was, I think he was maybe 20, he was on spring break in Miami. They were at a club. They were in line to get into this club. And they were in line for like an hour and a half. You know, it was the club. It was the club that they went down there for. And when they're about maybe 30 minutes out from getting to the door, he just felt the vibe, like, I don't want to be here. He just felt something in his spirit. He told me all about it. He's like, I just feel like, I just didn't want to be there. So he pulled out his phone, called the Uber, and he told his friends, guys, I'm about to go back to the Airbnb. I'm not feeling it. And they're all like, Dre, what do you mean? This is the club, man. We just got here. We came for this. You see those girls going in here? He was like, yo, I'm not going. And so he called the Uber, went back to the room, chilled out. And when he told me the story, I cried, because he did that at 20. I don't know if I could have done that at 35.
Right.
With the pressure, with the, lack of, now I'm about to cry, self-esteem, where you feel like you have to do what everyone else says to do instead of doing what God says to do, and to hear him for yourself and to be able to make moves, even if all your friends are like, no, stay. He was like, I don't feel like going. And so the gift that I would love to give them is freedom. Freedom. Even when I tell him, he wants to get married, I want him to get married, I say, you don't have to have kids right away. Make sure this is who you want to have kids with. Because we know of co-parenting going wrong. It's like, you don't have to be tied down with children until you're ready. You don't even have to be tied down. I tell them, you're holding down your bills. I said, but you ever need anything, you call mommy, because you're doing so well. If you need an extra 100, I got you. If my mother gave me 100 right now, to this day, I'm going to be happy. So I tell them, you're free to be a man, but you're also free to say, hey, I need help. And so my gift that I would love to give to them is freedom. Freedom. Even as Black men, you don't have to stay in no kind of box. I know certain places they don't want you to be, but walk up in there anyway as the Black man. Freedom, freedom, freedom. So that's what I will give to them, is freedom.
Awesome.
My final question for you ladies is this. This seems to be like a hot question. Every time there's a discussion about Black women raising Black men, single moms raising men, essentially. The question is always, can women raise a man? Can a woman raise a man? So what are your thoughts, ladies? You have children from various ages, some graduated, some haven't graduated, some already have their own children and started their own lives. Do you think that women can raise men?
Absolutely. We can do all things through Christ. Yes, we can. Wisdom, God's wisdom, His guidance, absolutely, we can. We can work them cards we were dealt. Absolutely.
I certainly think we can, because I've done it. I have 33 and 34. And even today, there was a situation where my son, I'm always nagging them. I'm always making sure they do the right thing. My son, Chauncey, is engaged. So I'm excited about him. I can't wait to the wedding. I absolutely love her. And so I tell them to make sure like you said, that this is a person you want to have children from, that this is a person you want to spend the rest of your life, because I don't want you to go through what I went through. You know what I mean? So he was like, Mom always nagging and she's always saying this. This is what he's telling his dad. But then his dad in turn says, but if she became silent, what would you do? And he said it would bother me because I'm so used to my mom always trying to tell me what's right. So if she ever gets silent, then I know that she's just letting me just do whatever because she don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. So yes, we can. They value their mom. They do.
Yes, a woman can raise a man. I know it's a loaded question, because if you say yes, it seems like the dog and the man or the brothers. No, because I know men that have raised wonderful women too. So
right.
We can do all things through Christ, as Tanya said. So it's not bashing of the men, or I don't need men. If we say that yes, raise a man, there are plenty of examples both ways, even with fathers. So yes, I mean, we all need help, whether obviously if we're married, you still need a village. So I don't think anyone's trying to be a superwoman, do it all yourself, but can we? Yes. And I think if you say no, then you're putting something on your child. You're pretty much stopping their growth and saying they can't be anything else because it's just you. So I would always speak in the affirmative and say, yes, I can.
Right.
I'm going to say that's a loaded question. And I kind of want to say no. I feel like I can raise a gentleman. I feel like I can tell you what I've learned from men, and I can tell you how I like to be treated and how I don't like to be treated. And I feel like that goes across the board for women. I never liked when people told me Happy Father's Day. I don't know. So I feel like I've raised my sons the best I knew how. And I tried to surround them with men, whether they were godly or not. I just tried to surround them with men. Because I don't know the mind of men. I don't know what it is to be a man.
Right.
But I feel like they told me, because I asked them questions when I learned I was going to be on this taping, and they almost made me cry because they were like, I basically did nothing wrong. And I'm like, you guys are lying. But they were just like, you know what? If you didn't do what you did in the way you did it, I don't think we would be where we are right now. Right. So I'm not going to cry. But I don't know. And I'll leave it there. I think we can do our best to raise like gentlemen, but I don't think I can ever say I can raise a man without being a man. I don't know.
I have to add one thing to that. One of the things that I remember one time I said to my oldest son, he told me that he loved me. And I said, I love you more. And he says, Mom, there's no way that you can love me more than I love you. He said, because you were the first person I saw when I was born. So I'm like, but how do you know you saw me? But it's like, when I thought about what he was trying to say was like, there's no possible way that you can love me more than I love you, Mom, because you're my mom. You're the reason why I'm here. You know what I mean? And so it's like, no, well, I was love at first sight when you were born. I got to say that. But I say that to say that even with my husband being here, the thing that they do say, not so much as me, I've raised them to the best of my ability, but I've heard them say so often, just watching my husband's relationship and how, I'm sorry, this thing is crazy. Mm-hmm. Where is it? Did I leave? Okay.
I can hear you.
Watching my husband, my oldest son, who is very hard to impress, told my husband one day, when I get married, I want to treat my wife the way you treat my mom. So they knew that I made a good choice.
That's special. And I think when you were talking about dating, I think that's key, because the type of men, first of all, I didn't choose to date a lot after my divorce, because I just didn't want to be that woman bringing random people in and out of my house, all these different relationships that I see going on with other people. I'm just like, no. But the men that I did choose, my son looked at them and said, I like the way he treats you. So it's the choices again. And even that was a role model kind of experience, seeing how to treat women and how to handle, be a man in that way.
How are your relationships now, your personal relationships? We know, Evangelist Sasser, you said that you have a good relationship with your son's father, But, you know, for the other ladies, how is your relationship now with your son's fathers? And I asked because I had to get to a point with my son's father where I had to start seeing him through eyes of grace, and realizing that he's just as human as I am. He, in some cases, are just as broken as I am. He needs healing. He may not have had, you know, the best upbringing or the best role models in his life. So I think that I have judged him and put a high level of expectation on him, when the truth of the matter is we're both learning how to parent. And unfortunately, he just doesn't have as much pressure. Society doesn't give as much pressure to the men as they do to the women, to make sure that we stay in our kids' life and we're raising them, you know, and we're here for them all the way through. How are your relationships with your, you know, with your children's fathers? And do you find that your relationship on any given time or at any given time has been a reflection of their relationship with their father?
So I don't have a relationship with either of my kids' fathers. I'm cordial when I see them, but I don't. But we don't. I wouldn't call it a relationship. Lanier's father, you know, he pays child support, but he's not present, and it doesn't stop him from being open to seeing him or talking to him. He just doesn't. You know, he just doesn't. I feel like as he gets older, though, he just doesn't see the need for it, since he's been gone for so long. And even when he was given the opportunity to build a relationship with him, he didn't take it. So I've never like bashed his father to him, because he was never around to bash, but it was just like I kind of just did my best and then let whatever happen.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as Aubrey's dad, there's no relationship there either. He's still young. He does see him every blue moon. He knows his name is Dad, but doesn't associate him with being his father.
Mm.
And that's it. Really, that's really it. And I honestly, I not to the place where I can bring myself to that's daddy. You know, not right now. I can't. I haven't gotten there. But you know, I do allow him when he does pop out of the blue and says he wants to come by and see him, or he wants to bring him something. I do allow him. I allow them to have their time, but he quickly forgets who he is, because that's how much he doesn't see him. So
I know for me, it's a cordial relationship with both. I don't want to single anybody out, so I'll talk about them kind of together. But there were periods where it was kind of like the focus seemed to be more on me and what I was doing instead of concern for the kids. And I'm just like, they need you. You know, this is your children. You know, these are your sons, whatever. So that was kind of a turn off. And then I also had to get over healing and over bitterness and just different things like that. And like you said, I now see them through the eyes of grace. Because I remember when I used to tell my story, I used to tell it in a totally different way, in a totally different tone. But now is much more grace and forgiveness and healing in that area.
With my older son's father, he actually was deported to Haiti. So he's Haitian and wasn't a citizen. So he committed some crimes and does not live in the U.S. At one point, they communicated via Facebook, and so did we, but he's older, that would be on him. So we don't really have a relationship because he's not even in the country. So I'm not sure, you know, the last time my son has spoken to him. I think it's been a while. With my younger son's dad, he and I, so we were engaged. Eventually we were engaged twice because I kept giving him his ring back and he gave it back to me. And I ended up breaking it off because, you know, I was divorced once and I didn't want to be divorced again. No one does. But I just saw some signs and red flags that I felt like we weren't heading down a good path, so I didn't marry him. And so our relationship is like, I think he's mad at me. He's mad at me. And so our relationship is one, I wish he would do more for his son, but I think that there's part of him, as you talk about the eyes of grace, that he's still dealing with his own hurt and feeling like I really hurt him and took him apart from his family. So there are periods when we get along great. We can laugh like brother and sister. And then we can be so petty. Like I said, we can be petty and trying to sabotage stuff. So that's how we do.
Right.
It's kind of funny. The other day, I guess he called me because his girlfriend was on the phone and she was wondering if we had anything going on, which is so super petty and I don't have time for that. But, I'm like, well, put me on the phone. I'll talk. He's like, I'm not putting you on the phone, Angela, because you're going to say we're together. You're going to say all this stuff. And I'm like, no, you're calling me. Let me have some fun. But I'm going to say, but that's how we are. So we can kind of get along. And then, so I guess we don't really hate one another. We're still dealing with our own particular hurts, all while trying to take care of our son.
Excuse me.
That was an awesome conversation, ladies. So I just want to thank you guys again for being guests this evening on Queen's Court Live. Your transparency and your story is greatly valued and needed in this society today, as we are together raising young African-American men in this world. My message to single mothers who are doing the job alone, to simply remember this: there are family, loved ones, fellow parents, and decent human beings that are in various parts of the world living similar stories, falling yet picking themselves back up in order for their sons to be the kings they were chosen to be. Take every day one step at a time and remember the power of the village. You are not alone. Until next time, thank you for joining us. As we talked, we laughed, we cried, but most importantly, we healed. Good night.